This is a 2001 Audi TT that unfortunately has a little bit of wreck damage, and we're going to be rebuilding this thing. Unfortunately, this is actually damage I caused. About 8 or so months ago, I had to deal with this thing, and unfortunately, the insurance totaled it out. They estimated that it would cost around $10,000 to repair, so we're going to try and rebuild it for a hell of a lot less than that. Now, I bought it back from insurance for $750, so if we can get this thing restored, that'll be a hell of a deal for one of these. So let's get this thing repaired. Note, I'm in the US, parts are a lot less common around here. This is the 180 horsepower front wheel drive version, unfortunately. Even more unfortunately, I just put a, well, new, quote unquote, head on this thing literally the day before I hit a deer with it. So that was very unfortunate. But I also did not clock the turbo right, so unfortunately the exhaust half and the non-exhaust half are not perfectly lined up right, so you can't actually mount it properly, which is why when we start this thing up, it's going to make a pretty loud racket because it's not bolted to the exhaust very well. So we're going to have to fix that first, and then we can fix all of this. So let's pull this thing into the garage, drop the front axle, get to that turbo, because I really don't want to have to pull the head to get that turbo out again. This thing has been sitting for a while, so typical Audi, the battery's definitely dead. Ideally, this thing will crank right up and we'll be able to drive it. Will that happen? I don't know. But let's find out. Yeah, perfect. Easy. That just fired right up. And here is the Audi TT in the garage. I had tried to use the angle of the ground to try and get a little bit more height here in the front. I don't actually know if I succeeded in that or not, but hopefully I did. Now, we need to get to that turbo. The fun part is there's two ways to take the turbo out. The top, but you have to remove the engine head, or the bottom, and you have to remove the axle. Obviously, we're going to remove the axle, because that's a hell of a lot easier than the engine head. So, well, it better be at least, Jesus. I've already replaced the head on this. I haven't done the axle, so I don't actually know, but I'm gonna assume the axle's easier.
We should also probably fix that flex pipe. That's, not doing much flexing anymore. Well, actually, I guess it's doing too much flexing these days. We need to pull this turbo out, and to do that, we need to remove this front axle, which looks to just be held in with a whole bunch of triple squares, which, why the fuck is a triple square a goddamn thing? I don't know. Why can't it be a goddamn Torx? I don't know.
It was a real pain to remove this axle. I didn't really think about how difficult this was going to be before I started this, but it's easier than taking the head off the engine, so it's really the only option. We now have a new downpipe. I had to have to get a 3-inch downpipe. I was hoping to just get a factory at 2.5, but honestly, the 3-inch ended up being cheaper, so I don't know why that was. It also came with a cat delete, but since this vehicle is going to have to go through an enhanced inspection, we're absolutely not going to do that. I also got some other parts in there. I saw that one was super rusty on the thing, so just in case, I grabbed a whole bunch of exhaust parts to hopefully put this back together.
Well, shit. I'm gonna be honest, I thought the cat unbolted, like that other exhaust pipe, but that is apparently not the case, so unfortunately it looks like we're gonna have to end up cutting those there. Well, for one, because I have absolutely no faith that any of those are coming off. And I guess try and separate the pipe there. Hopefully that won't be too difficult. Then we'll have to figure out a way to put this cat back onto that 3-inch pipe. This is going to be difficult.
Unfortunately, we're definitely going to have to wait till after the enhanced inspection to install that, but that's going to add so much more flow than that. That is absolutely ridiculous. The turbo is out. That was absolutely ridiculous. That took hours. I think the easier option is to either take off the head or drop the engine. That was stupid. I don't know how the hell I'm getting this thing back in. But I also don't think I needed to take it out. See, this is the bolt I couldn't get anything to thread into. Yeah, see, there's a piece of metal fucking stuck in the threads. I don't think I needed to take this out. I think I can just use a pick and pick that out. I don't think that needs retapped or helicoiled like I figured it would. Now will a bolt thread into it? Nope. Okay. So it's a good thing I pulled it out. That's going to need drilled and helicoiled. Awesome. Well, that's fun. I don't think I have those helicoils. I hope I can get those in town. Okay, the hole's been drilled. Now it's time to hopefully tap this out. And we'll see if we can get a helicoil in this thing. Really don't want to have to replace this turbo. Okay, that has been threaded. Now we just need to hopefully thread this thing in here. And we'll hopefully have our threads back. Though I guess I need Loctite first. That would be really fucking stupid of me if I didn't. Okay, so the turbo's in-ish. I put those 2 bottom bolts in for that bracket. I'm going to see if I can bolt this to the exhaust manifold now, and then we'll move on. I couldn't bolt it onto the exhaust manifold before, so as long as we can do that, I think everything else should be able to line up. But this is going to be really, really tight. Those oil hoses on top might actually have to get bolted up before any of this. I'm not sure. I'm just going to dry fit it to see if I can connect everything. And then we'll see about trying to connect those oil and coolant lines up top. Those are really, really tight under there. It's a real pain. Okay, so it is bolted on. All 3 bolts are on, which is new, so it does line up now, which is good. But now we have to unbolt it to get the oil and the coolant lines connected. Not sure if there's any coolant lines up top, but I believe that oil line, at least I believe it's an oil line. Yeah, I know it's an oil line because it was dripping oil on me, I'm pretty damn sure. Shit, actually I don't remember. But one of these lines was dripping oil all over me, and the other one was gushing coolant all over me. But we got to get these things connected. There's at least 1 up top, and there's 2 on the bottom. I think there's 2 on top. I don't know. It's so tight in there. It's in. Fucking finally. Whoever decided to put those 2 hoses directly on top of the turbo, directly below that, go fuck yourself. That was incredibly difficult to get off. I ended up having to unbolt the manifold, bolt those hoses on, bolt the manifold back on, then bolt the manifold onto the turbo. What the fuck? Now, the only issue is I ripped a lot of hoses out of the way to get to that, so now I need to undo that. Now, I know a lot of people will actually just delete a lot of these hoses on these engines, but unfortunately, since we're going through an enhanced inspection, I want to leave this thing as stock as absolutely possible. Ultimately, I doubt they'd notice if I removed a bunch of this stuff and bypassed it, but better safe than sorry. Enhanced inspections are expensive. All the hoses are hooked back up, all the turbo hoses are hooked back up. The only thing left is the exhaust, which we'll have to get a piece welded in, then we can put that back on. But I think it's just about time we start moving on to the front end. Okay, so I got the old flex joint off, and I burger welded this one on. Now what I'm going to do is actually bolt this to the turbo, mount that exhaust pipe in, clock it right so everything's lined up, and then tack it, take it out, weld it properly, because if I just weld it out here, nothing's ever going to line up. And honestly, I don't want to do that welding under the car, so we're just going to tack it in place under the car, pull it out, and weld it properly. There we go, that should be relatively airtight. Now let's get this thing mounted back under the car. Okay, now we're going to jumpstart this thing and make sure we don't have any major exhaust leaks or any other major issues before we move on to putting that axle and all that fun stuff back in. Moment of truth. Oh yeah, nice and quiet. Pretty good. Now with that, it's time to put that back in, the entire corner suspension. And there we go. This entire corner is on, knuckles on, all the fun stuff. Springs mounted up, new bushings up top. Now let's get the brake rotor back on and get the caliper back on, and this corner will be done. Okay, we are done mechanically, I think. I got that back on. I put a clamp on the turbo hose I forgot about, and a heat shield. I also put a heat shield on the CV axle, and I also obviously have this corner done. Now that we finally have the engine stuff sorted out, we can actually start repairing the wreck damage. The insurance quoted that this would be $10,000 worth of damage, so obviously we're going to do that a hell of a lot cheaper. First thing we need to do is remove this front bumper. And there we go, the bumper's off. Now this core support should be unbolted. It was just 2 T45s, 2 10s, and 6 13s, and as we can see, oh yeah. Now the radios are still attached to this thing, so we'll have to disconnect those. The coolant, unfortunately, I mean the refrigerant, I don't have to recover because that all hissed away when I hit the accident, so I know that's empty. Awesome. That's fun. All that I have replacements for, so let's get this thing the rest of the way ripped apart. Everything has been disconnected, all electrical things, the hood latch, everything, so this should simply pull away. I forgot one electrical clip. That should, there we go. One damaged front clip. Unfortunately, it is shattered right there, so it is unusable. There is a bunch of usable stuff still on it, so we'll grab all that stuff. Same reason I have this bumper still. There's still a good many good parts on this thing. And now we're down to just the front of the Audi. And we can see we need to get the front radiator and condenser off, save the fans, everything like that, but this stuff is all damaged, so it all has to come out. And there we go, the front of the car is fully disassembled. Now there's one more thing we actually need to replace, and that is this thing right here. It's a little bit broken, so we got a new one right here that should be very simple. I believe it's like 2 bolts and it just slides on. Now here is the AC condenser. It does have to be replaced because it is punctured. The radiator technically isn't punctured, but we're going to replace it anyway. The insurance quoted to replace it, and they're not that expensive, so I'm just going to replace it as well. There they are. Now there's a bunch of things we need to switch over from the old radiator onto our new one, and the condenser actually came with a new dryer, which is good because I forgot to order one of those, and you should replace those whenever you do AC work. Now, it also is nicely sealed on both ends. We don't want to open that up until we're ready to connect the hoses. We do not want moisture in this. We will be evacuating it properly, but we don't want any impurities into our coolant system, or I mean refrigerant system. There we are. All the stuff that needs to be swapped over has been swapped over. The temperature sensors, the adapters, all the fancy stuff. Let's get this thing mounted in the Audi. And there we go. The new radiator and condenser are bolted in. All the hoses are connected. Now we need to slap on the radiator support and the front bumper, and we'll basically be done. And here's our new radiator support. However, it is a few model years newer, so there's a few differences. One, it has a garage door module mounted right there. Well, not anymore. It also has the horns in 2 different locations, has them over there instead of right in the center. And unfortunately, there's no bolt in the center to actually mount them where they should be for my model year. So what we're going to have to do is actually swap this crash bar. Luckily, my crash bar did not take any damage. In fact, I think it's in better shape than this one, as it has a small dent right there. So, win-win. There we have it. The conversion from whatever model year that was to 2001 model year is complete. So now we can throw this thing on here, ignore the flickering light. I love LEDs. Apparently this also has to get swapped because this connector on this has this extra piece of plastic, so you can't plug it into the older style. That's really stupid. It's just a fucking switch. It would probably work if I just cut that off, but hell, we're gonna swap it. There we go. Everything here is mounted up. The next part is the headlights, as they have to go on before the front bumper. And here's our 2 new headlights. That one's slightly cloudier than that one, which is concerning. I think it's actually just dirty. But let's get these things slapped in the car. However, there is something you have to watch out for. For the Quattro version of these cars, these are 24 volts. However, these are 12 volt headlights because this is not a Quattro version. The Quattro versions use 24, non-Quattros use 12. I don't know if they're plug and play. They could be, but, well, who knows. But to be correct, you need the 12 volt ones. Now I'm really confused. This is the original passenger side headlight that I got in the wreck with and it broke the tabs off. As you can see, this one has a 3rd connector right here. There's that one, a little turn signal thing here, and this here. The new headlight only has this here, the turn signal, and this. What is this? I don't know. You need to take a look inside of your headlights, especially on the early ones, 2001s especially. The wires inside will disintegrate. They use a Teflon-coated wire because of the high heat, and for some reason they used a really, really poor one that the Teflon simply just breaks off. This one here has been fully rewired, my original one, because, well, all of the insulation had fallen off internally, so fully disassemble, full rewire. You need to do it. Otherwise, your car is going to burn down. So definitely open these up and make sure you don't have any flaking insulation. Now, before we go any further, I actually want to test these headlights and make sure they actually work, since we have that extra connector. They might be for auto headlight leveling. Maybe these headlights don't have that option, which would be really annoying, but as long as everything else works, we should be good, and as long as it'll have a light on the dash or something. I know this one's going to have a turn signal bed because the bulb is setting right there because it is blown, so I'll have to get a new one of those, but let's just test and make sure everything else is functional. Okay, so we got headlight and fog light on both of them, that's good. And now we have headlight and high beam on both of them. We have 4 ways on that one, not on this one because that bulb is dead, so we're good. And with that, we are together. I got the battery on charge because it was super dead, but the hood's on, the front bumper's on. Now, this is being voiced over for a very specific reason that I'll show you right now. And that's because I'm wearing an N95 mask. As you can see, this is absolutely disgusting. I don't know how this happened. I'm assuming with the angle that the vehicle was parked, water was able to get in here, and it molded everything. So I'm just cleaning it. Hopefully this doesn't damage the leather, but honestly, I could care less with this mold. And would you look at that, this actually is cleaning up really well. Much better than I expected. I found the moisture. There was a puddle of water behind this seat. Apparently I have a leak in my sunroof around the glass. I did actually find it later, so I'll have to patch that. But yeah, this is ridiculous. There's some water back in there as well. So yeah, this is a problem. And there we have it. This actually turned out much better than I expected, especially considering how fuzzy it was. The leather honestly didn't take any damage, so we're good. That was scary. And there we have it. This thing looks absolutely incredible. Everything is finally lined up. Everything closes properly. The hood hinges are all lined up right, so it closes without hitting anything. Good gaps, everything. So, with that, it is done. Mold is out of the interior, as you saw. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Usually I don't work on this stuff. I work on, well, arcade machines, and, well, at this point, I don't know why I say that, because I work on fucking everything.